Shabbos Yom Tov. I want to wish everyone a kosher and happy Pesach. May it be a real, true holiday of redemption. May one be redeemed from their own inner constrictions, and may we all be redeemed with the ultimate redemption of Mashiach. We know part of the Seder, of course, is 4 cups of wine. Let me give you a little interesting perspective on those 4 cups of wine. How long were the Jews in Egypt? So the Torah actually says that the Jews spent 430 years in Egypt. But in fact, a matter of fact, that wasn't the case. We know from calculations I'm not going to get into now that the time period of the Jewish people were in Egypt was actually 210 years. So why does the Torah say 430? Well, on one hand, 430 was how much we were meant to be there. Counting, it went from 430 down to 210. And that's one of the reasons we celebrate Pesach, that we weren't there as much as we were meant to. And 430, that is when God told Abraham that your children will be slaves in a land that isn't theirs for 400 years. From that moment, that was 430 years prior to the Jews' exodus from Egypt. Because in the moment God told Abraham that message, he was enslaved. It's like if your doctor tells you, heaven forbid, you need a quadruple bypass surgery. When do you start worrying? When you go to the hospital? No. You start worrying at the moment the doctor tells you that. So at the moment God tells Abraham about his children being slaves in a land that isn't theirs, they already lived in Egypt. He already lived psychologically in this Egypt that his children are going to have to be in. And that's the 430 years. 210 is from when Jacob came down to Egypt. So the fact is that even the 210 were not persecution in Egypt. Jacob lived 17 of his best years of his life in Egypt. And as long as one of Jacob's sons were alive, the persecution did not start. There was no negative relationship between the Egyptians and the Jewish people. And that was 116 years prior to the Exodus, when Levi passed away, which was the last of the brothers to pass away. And actually, the real bitterness and persecution and enslavement in Egypt came with the birth of Miriam, Moses' sister, which was 86 years prior to the redemption. So in truth, 86 is the number where we were totally enslaved in Egypt. So here's the interesting thought. 86, 5 times 86 is 430. So we were really enslaved 86 years. That means 4 times 86, we were not enslaved. The word for kos means a cup of wine. Kos is 86. In addition, the minimum measure of wine is 86 mil. So we drink 4 cups of wine of redemption to express the fact that even though we were meant to be enslaved for 430 years, in actual fact, 4 of the 86 years, we were actually free. And it was only the last 86 years that we were enslaved. Now, what that means and what message it gives is the following. Really, we should have been enslaved for 430 years, or at least 210 years. But what happened was that we exchanged the enslavement in Egypt and something else. It says that Jacob sent Yehuda, his son, to make a yeshiva in Egypt. And the Jewish people in Egypt labored in the study of Torah. And because they labored in the study of Torah, they didn't need to go through the persecution of Egypt. The persecution of Egypt was not a punishment, because it was not a punishment, and there was nothing that they did they needed punishment for. But it was a refinement, it was a kill, it was to refine the gold that is the soul of the Jew and take away all the dross from it, and make the Jewish people worthy of receiving the Torah on Mount Sinai. So, sometimes we are not in a state of mind. We're not in a perspective. We're not in that we are open to new ideas, to new perspectives, to new situations. Sometimes we need to go through a lot, go through a refinement in order for us to be able to reach that. When people are comfortable and there's no negativity in our life, we could become full of ourselves and not open to anything godly. So unfortunately, sometimes the difficulties of life make us open to something more, something greater, something higher, something beyond. But that difficulties of life doesn't actually have, we don't need necessarily to be hit by these difficulties. This is something that we can take on ourselves when we challenge ourselves, when we sacrifice for someone else, for God. When we go through that, we actually are able to become ready for that higher revelation and not need a Egyptian experience. And so whilst the Jews were involved and totally engrossed and really working, really laboring on the study of Torah, they didn't have to labor for Egypt. The moment they got comfortable and became like the Egyptians and wanted to just earn a nice living like the Egyptians and just be like them and be as proud Egyptians, just like the Egyptians were, that's when we needed something else to get us out of that mindset. There's a story of the Chafetz Chaim. The Chafetz Chaim was approached by a wealthy Jew. He was running a gemach, a free loans fund, and he was lending out money to people, and people were constantly harassing him. They need a loan, this one, that one. It was taking a lot of time from him. He decided that he'll get someone else to run it. He doesn't want, it's taking too much of his time. So he tells the Chafetz Chaim that's what he wants to do. So Chafetz Chaim says, why? King David, in the most famous chapter in Tehillim, chapter 23, it says like this: Ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chaya. May goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life. What's this expression, pursue me? It's a weird expression. Goodness and kindness find me. Goodness and kindness be my portion. What's this, pursue me? Pursue is a negative experience, a negative connotation, has a negative connotation. Says the Chafetz Chaim, life is such that we have to be pursued by something. Something is going to pursue us. You have a choice. Goodness and kindness could pursue you, or other things could pursue you. You're better off having people who need money chasing you than you needing to chase others for your money. So be grateful to Hashem that your, so to speak, persecution is the fact that people are bothering you to lend them money. So what this tells us is every human being needs to go through challenges, sacrifice, in order to reach our highest potential, in order to come to our revelation, in order to come to our Har Sinai, our Israel. We need to go through something, but let us choose what that is. Let it be something positive and good. Let us challenge ourselves to do more than is habitual, than we're comfortable with. And then we won't have to go through the Egypt. So as we sit at the Seder, and we want to release ourselves from the constriction of our restrictions in our life, let's think of those areas that we're able to push ourselves a little bit more, which will help us become totally free. And may, after this redemption of Pesach, may we all be worthy with the ultimate redemption with the coming of Mashiach. Shabbos, Good Yom Tov. I hope you all have powerful, positive, meaningful Seders.